Hi everyone. I know it has been a very long time since I've posted a video, but I just want to say welcome back to the IT Hub. In today's lesson, we're going to continue looking at the Food and Rum Festival SBA, and I'm going to be starting with this spreadsheet. Now, the first thing you're going to be doing is to look at your document, your SBA document. Try to get a good understanding of what you're supposed to be doing. On my right, we're going to be starting the spreadsheet worksheet. First thing it asks you to do is to create a worksheet named sponsorship that accepts and stores the data provided on the sponsorship expression of interest form. And you may go back and look at the task A, but I have some of the details here, things like organization, a contact name, email address, telephone number, headquarters location, and we're going to be breaking this headquarters location up into street, town, and parish, and we're going to also add the application date. So I'm going to go ahead and add that data. However, before I add that data, I'm going to add the details pertaining to each student. Each student needs to put in some specific details about themselves. So for example, we're going to put the student registration number. It's your name, student's names. I'm going to put name first, then your registration number, your school, the territory that you belong to, and then your the year of the exam. So for example, say my name is Simone Bartley. And if you're working on your SBA groups, then you can put the additional names going across in the other columns. So my registration number is 100088123. And my school is Old Harbor High School. Territory is Jamaica. And the year is 2022. And you may adjust that, but you may want to leave it because the column adjustments should really be done based on what you are entering for your actual SBA data. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to just leave a few blank rows because I'm going to be creating a small table later on, and I'm going to need this space. So I'm going to start off by looking at and entering the name of the organization. And I'm using the tab key to move from one column to the next. So organization, contact name, email address, telephone, and you may shorten it if it's going to take up too much space. Telephone number, may just add number to that. Location, remember we're going to break the location down into street, town, and parish. And the next thing is the application date. What you're going to do next is you're going to type the names of 15 companies wherever your location is. So I'm going to just type a few, and then I'm going to complete the list and come back. I'm going to start off with Digicel, Unicomer, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to finish the list and come back. So far I have added all 15 of my organizations, and you will notice, students, that the names of the organizations are so long that they are coming over into columns B, C, and D. No fear, just all you need to do is just to adjust the width of column A. To do this, you can either click between columns A and B and drag to your right, or you can double click between the two columns. When you double click, it will adjust the width of column A according to the length of the longest piece of text or the length of the longest organization's name. If you click and drag, you determine how far or how wide that column is going to be. So here I have all my 15 organizations. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the contact name. I'm going to break this up. Initially, I had it as just contact name. I'm going to put first name and last name. So I'm going to insert another column. I highlight column B, right click, select insert, and I'm going to put first name, then last name in the next column, instead of just contact name. And I'm going to go ahead and add 15 first name, 15 last names. I know that most students have a tendency to try to pretty it up and try to make the first names and last names match up, but there's no need to do that, students. Just type in 15 first names and 15 last names. As long as they are typed correctly, you have nothing to worry about. So I'm going to do that and then come back. Okay, so I have my 15 organization names. I have my 15 first names, 15 last names. Now I want to add 15 email addresses. I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to do the email addresses without making it difficult. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type the names of the person's first name and last name. So James Pearson and I'm going to use just the initial letters for the company. So for Digital Jamaica, I'm going to say dj.com. Once I do that, go back up to my email address, I'm going to autofill. So when I autofill, it's going to have the same email address coming down, but from the autofill options, I'm going to drop down the arrow and select flash fill. When I select flash fill, what it's going to do is once you spelled the James Pearson correct on this side and you follow the particular format in terms of the company's name, it's going to follow the same format with all the other names and use the initial letters of the company's names and create the email addresses. So if I press enter, if I come out of that, you're going to be able to now see the different email addresses. All right, so I'm going to just double click and open up that column and we're going to scroll across. The next thing you want to enter is the telephone number, street, town, and parish. This is going to be the address. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to complete entering the data and then I'm going to come back and start to show you how we enter data for this sponsorship. All right, so I have pretty much almost entered everything for the spreadsheet, but I want to show you a few things before I complete the data entry. So if I am using my keyboard to go across, you'll notice I have entered almost everything already except for the application date. Students, please note on the left-hand side of my screen are the parishes that you're supposed to be using. So try to stick to the parishes in the parish section as best as is possible. Now for the application date. The application date it has to be before October 10 because the event is from October 10 to November 20. Is 26 or 22nd, 2022. So any application date must fall before October 10. Now I'm pausing here to show you how to enter the date because there are different ways you can enter the date. For example, if I were to put, say, the date of application for this first company is the 1st of January 2022, I can set the format for the date. For example, I click on the date after I have entered it, then I go to the number group. It changes the data type to date, but I want to ensure that the settings for the date are set as how I want it. So I'm going to click on the number format icon, and then I wait for the dialog box to pop up. Now that it is up, I'm going to select which type I want. So you can choose any one that you want, one that you're comfortable with. In Jamaica, we work with day, month, year. And so you will notice my computer says English Jamaica. You can change it to whichever English version you want. I want to keep it like that. And you can keep it as a short date like this one, or you can use a date like this. I'm going to keep it as it is here, but you can choose whichever one you want. Then I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and just fill in the remainder of the dates and then return with the rest of the spreadsheet. We have just completed entering the application date, and I'm now at the point where I'm ready to enter the levels of sponsorship as well as the value for each of those levels of sponsorship. To do that, I'm going to simply type in the three different levels of sponsorship. For example, first one is tier 1, tab tier 2, tab tier 3. And then I'm going to put the same things again, but I'm going to spell out the numbers, and these next 3 columns are going to be used for the values of each of the sponsorship. Just above the first 3 tiers, I'm going to highlight those 3 cells. I'm going to merge and center, and I'm going to put the label sponsorship level. I'm going to go across. The next 3, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to merge and center, and I'm going to put sponsorship values or value. All right. Now, how are we going to enter the sponsorship values? We're going to use about the same words here. A sponsor can sponsor 1 event, 2 events, or 3 events. You will need to mix and match it up how you like. You don't have to do it how I am going to do it. You choose which level each sponsor is going to sponsor at. So I'm going to say okay. And when you type it in, type it exactly as you have it in the first 3 columns here, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to right click to make it easier. Right click and copy. Then I'm going to just paste in those areas where I want the sponsor to sponsor at a tier 1 level. Press escape to get rid of a selection. Then I'm going to copy the tier 2. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to paste it in the same column a few more times. Students, one of the reasons why I'm doing it like this is to avoid spelling errors. So once you have it correct one place, it will be okay in other places, because once you're ready to do the if statement or the if function, if you don't have the spelling correct, it's going to create problems. I'm going to do it for tier 3. Oh, I selected the wrong one here. I just realized I have tier 2 type there. I'm going to fix that. And every sponsor must have some sponsorship, all right? You can't have a sponsor who has nothing. And that is how I've decided to do my sponsorship. In order to calculate the sponsorship value, I'm going to create another table, just a little table down below here, and I'm going to put each of the tier names. So I'm going to put tier there, then I'm going to put value, and I'm going to put the tiers underneath. So I'm going to copy it to make sure that the spelling is the same. What I'm going to pick one of those that has the so I keep pasting instead of copying. Right, copy. And then I'm going to paste it here. And because this has 3 tiers, the same 3 tiers going across, I'm just going to autofill and go down to make my life easy. For tier 1, we know that the value is 100,000. tier 2 $50,000, and this is in US dollars, and tier 3 $25,000. All right. I suggest you format the values to currency so that the calculations here on can show up as currency. I'm going to merge these two, and I'm going to put sponsorship. Now, students, the table does not have to come here. It could have been placed over in the corner on your right. It could have been placed above here, the area where the sponsorship level is. It all depends on where you want to put it. All right. So I'm going to move mine, in fact, and show you that I can put it up here. And I'm going to just put it just a little bit above so it's not too close to it. All right, so I'm going to redo my merge cell. And there we have it. I'm going to also highlight the table and I'm going to put in a board. I'm going to do that for the remainder of the spreadsheet when I'm finished. But just so you can see the table standing out right there, I'm going to put it like that. All right, so we're going to go over and we're going to now calculate we're told in instruction number 2, part B, to insert 3 columns with the tiers as the headings and use if functions to fill in the sponsorship values for each tier and the subsequent rows below. So I'm going to bring over my screen a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And I'm going to show you how the if statement works. So we say equal if, then we double click on the if function. What we're going to do is we're going to be checking to see if the value that is inside of each tier cell looks like the entry inside of the sponsorship table. So I want to know if this tier 1 here looks like this tier 1 here. So we check to see if it is equal to this tier 1. And if it is equal to it, then we're going to set in fact, before we put in the comma, we need to ensure that we make this cell reference here absolute by pressing the F4 on your keyboard. If you're using a desktop computer, you can press F4, the function key at the top of the keyboard. However, if you're using a laptop, you will have to hold on a FN key, which stands for function, because the function keys will have 2 functions on them in order for you to get the F4 functionality. So hold on the FN key and press the F4 key. And once you do that, the cell reference is going to change from J9 to $J $9. Once you have done that, put in the comma, and we're saying now if this cell value looks just like tier 1 here, we're going to give it $100,000. We're going to assign it this value. And because for every tier 1 we want to do that, we're going to also make this absolute by pressing the F4 on the keyboard. For the laptops, FN, function key in the lower left-hand corner of your keyboard, and then you press the F4 key. Then comma, so this is a value if true. So if this condition is true, or this logical test is true, then this is going to be the value, which is 100,000, which is in K9. Otherwise, if it is empty or it doesn't look like it, then we're going to give it the value 0. And then we're going to close the bracket and press enter. Notice, this sponsor has no tier 1 sponsorship. Hence, under sponsorship value, it is 0. I'm going to autofill for you to see now that it will pick up the ones that actually have a tier 1 sponsor. So look at this, tier 1 value, tier 1 value. And it will work out like that for all of them. I'm going to show you a second time. So for the tier 2, same procedure, equal, if function, double click. Then I'm going to select to say if this tier 2 looks just like the tier 2 here, I'm going to make that absolute, comma, then I'm going to assign it this value and I'm going to make it absolute again. And then if it doesn't look like it, I'm going to assign the value 0 to it. Press enter, and there we have it. So this sponsor actually has a tier 2 sponsorship, and hence the $50,000 comes up. Going to autofill that and do the last one, equal if tier 3 looks like this tier 3, right? Make it absolute, then comma, I'm going to make this value, make it absolute again, Otherwise, I'm going to give it a 0 and I'm going to close the bracket, press enter, then I'm going to autofill. All right. So I'm going to go over to get some space. I'm going to adjust the column width here. The next thing we're told to do, to minimize this again, is we're to create a column to sum the total sponsorship, right? So I'm going to widen the spreadsheet column again. And I'm going to add a column called total sponsorship. Good. I'm going to sum. So you're going to be using the sum function. You can use the auto sum or you can type equal sum. It doesn't really matter. Once it picks up the correct cells with using the auto sum, you're good. Press enter. It should give you the total sponsorship, and all you need to do now is to autofill and go down. Remember, the fill handle is here in the lower right hand corner of the cell. It's that little green box. This mouse pointer is a fill pointer. This is a move pointer if you want to move a value from somewhere to put it somewhere else. And this one is a highlight. This pointer is a highlight. All right. So please don't mix them up. All right. I'm going to set the format for these monetary values to currency. So I highlight all of them. Go to where we have general in the number group. And I'm going to select currency. All right. I'm going to also wrap this total sponsorship text because I don't want to widen all the columns. I'm going to go to the alignment group, select wrap text. Just widen it enough for the two words to hold. I'm going to do the same thing for application date. I'm going to just adjust the side of the width of the column, right? Like that. I don't think I need to wrap any more of them. Email address is not going to need to do that to it. Maybe we can do that with a telephone number. So I'm going to wrap that. Readjust the column. Okay, that's good enough. Organization name can stay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to format the text and we're going to put in some nice little borders. So we highlight the area, and in the font group, we want to drop down the arrow and we want to select all borders. Oh, I forgot the organization name, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that and do the same thing, all borders. All right. I'm also going to do a few other things. I'm going to insert some rows here just above the table that has the sponsorship values. I'm going to insert about 3 rows. So I'm going to highlight rows 6 to 9, right click, say insert. I'm going to put one broad heading just above that. Highlight those that set of cells. We're not highlighting the row, we're highlighting from, what's this now, A7 to P7. I'm going to merge and center. I'm going to type Jamaica Food and Rum Festival. Just going to double check to ensure that what I am typing is the correct heading. I have a tendency to mix up the name and say Jamaica Rum and Food Festival. So I have it correct here. Jamaica Food and Rum Festival. I'm going to change the font size to say 20. Change my font style. You don't have to use my font style. I'm just using these font styles to show that you can change it. I'm going to use Jamaica Food and Rum Festival Bernard MT Condensed. I'm going to change mine to a shade of green, and I'm going to fill the background with yellow. All right. I'm going to also scroll across, just fix up my tables a bit. Remember, students, you don't have to, but it makes it look better. All right. The same thing here, just to differentiate these two. Just going to fill them with some different values. Highlight them, and I'm going to boxes around, borders around them as well. Now, if you wanted to fill in your headings with another color, you could just go ahead and do it. It's up to you. You're not being forced, but make sure that you know that you understand what you are doing in terms of the headings and things like that. So this is pretty much the first part of the spreadsheet. Here you have your locations, not location, just sponsorship sheet. I'm going to rename the sheet by double clicking. You can do it two ways, double clicking and type in sponsorship and press enter. I spelled this incorrectly. Or alternatively, you could have right clicked on the name of the sheet and say rename and type your name and press enter. And that students concludes the first lesson for the spreadsheet. In the next lesson, we're going to be creating the second sheet.